He didn't believe in kindness anymore. Not after the world had laughed at his pain, trampled on his pride, and left him broke and bitter. So when he saw her, a stranger with a flat tire in the middle of a cold, soaking rain, he almost drove right past. But something made him stop. He didn't know her name, didn't know her story, and he definitely didn't know that just a few years earlier, he had humiliated her without even realizing it. She remembered him, though, and what she did next would rewrite the entire course of his life. Because sometimes, the person you mock in your worst moment becomes the very one who gives you your greatest chance. If you've ever believed in second chances, or if life's ever surprised you in the most unexpected way, this story is for you. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to SoulTwist Stories. We've got more emotional, life-changing stories just like this one. And trust me, you won't want to miss what happens next. Jake Whitman had grease under his fingernails and a chip on his shoulder. The kind of man who'd stopped looking forward to anything. Life hadn't just knocked him down, it had shoved his face in the mud. Years ago, Jake used to work at one of the most high-end car dealerships in the city. It was the kind of place where rich people bought cars they'd never drive and treated salesmen like furniture. Jake never liked that world, but he needed the job. Especially after his wife walked out and took their daughter with her. He remembered the day it all cracked open. A client, some wealthy woman in designer heels, had come in complaining about a scratch on her new sports car. While Jake tried to calm her down, his trembling hands spilled coffee down the front of her white blouse. She didn't yell. She didn't even flinch. She just laughed. Not the good kind of laugh, the kind that echoes. The kind that makes you feel small. Jake was humiliated. His manager fired him on the spot, saying the dealership's image couldn't afford clumsy losers. That laugh stayed with him. So did the shame. Years passed. Jake found work as a tow truck driver in a dusty little town just off the interstate. The pay wasn't much, but it was enough to cover rent on his tiny trailer and keep the fridge half full. That was all he needed. Or at least, that's what he told himself. He had become the man who didn't wave back, didn't make small talk, didn't care about birthdays or good mornings. Life had hardened him. And to be honest, he didn't mind it. But something changed that Tuesday evening. The rain started around 5, light at first, then pounding like fists on the windshield. Jake was finishing a call about a car stuck in a ditch when he saw her. A sleek silver BMW with one flat tire, parked awkwardly on the shoulder. A woman, maybe late 30s, was struggling with a jack, clearly soaked to the bone. Jake slowed down, but he didn't stop. He muttered to himself, "Figures. One of those rich types. Probably doesn't even know where the spare is." He drove a few feet past her, then paused. Something tugged at him. Not pity, not kindness, more like curiosity. He reversed, got out, slammed his door, and walked up to her with his hood half over his head. "You know that's not how you lift a car, right?" he called out, voice laced with sarcasm. The woman looked up, blinking rain from her eyes. She didn't say a word, just stepped aside. Jake fixed the tire quickly, annoyed at himself for helping. When he finished, she reached into her bag and handed him a $100 bill. He stared at it. Big spender, huh? Still, she didn't speak. Just gave a soft smile. One of those smiles that almost looks like a secret. Jake took the money, shook his head, and walked away, muttering, "Rich folks." No clue. He had no idea that the woman he just helped had a story of her own, and that she'd been waiting years for this exact moment. The next day, Jake was back on his usual routine, tired, grumpy, and trying to avoid conversations at the local gas station. He sipped his burnt coffee while flipping through a newspaper he didn't intend to read when someone tapped his shoulder. He turned, half expecting a complaint about a tow job. But it was her. That same woman. She wasn't dressed like yesterday. No heels. No designer bag. Just jeans, boots, and a wool coat. Her hair pulled back, eyes clear and confident. Jake blinked. Hey. Flat tire again." She smiled faintly. "Nope. But I do have a proposition." Jake raised an eyebrow. I'm not in the market for whatever you're selling. You didn't have to stop yesterday, she said. But you did. And I'd like to repay that. Not with money. With dinner. Jake laughed once. Sharp. I don't do charity dates, lady. It's not charity. Think of it as a thank you. No strings. She handed him a card. Just a restaurant name and address. No phone number. Nothing fancy. Before Jake could reply, she was gone. Back in her car, tires hissing on the wet road. He stared at the card for a long time. It wasn't the dinner that got him. It was her calm. The way she looked at him. Like she knew something about him that he didn't even know himself. By 7 p.m., Jake found himself standing outside a warm-looking Italian place 2 towns over. Not a chain. The kind of spot that smells like roasted garlic and fresh bread before you even step in. He walked in, awkward in his worn denim jacket, and spotted her in the back corner. She waved. They talked over pasta and red wine. About nothing and everything. About books, travel, rainstorms, and regret. She asked questions. He surprised himself by answering them. She didn't mention the tire, or the money, or even her name. He didn't press. By dessert, he found himself laughing, really laughing, for the first time in years. When the waiter brought the check, Jake instinctively reached for his wallet. But she had already paid. He shook his head. You're not one of those mysterious guardian angel types, are you? She chuckled. Maybe. Or maybe I just remember people who show up when no one else does. Jake walked her to her car. As she slid into the driver's seat, she finally said, My name's Evelyn. Evelyn Carrington. Something about the name tickled a nerve in Jake's memory. But he couldn't place it. Nice to meet you, Evelyn, he said. She looked at him with a softness that felt almost like forgiveness. Not yet, she replied. But you will. She drove off into the dark. Jake stood there under the streetlight, still holding the card she gave him earlier. He turned it over for the first time. There was something scribbled on the back. Come by tomorrow. Same place. Noon. Jake barely slept that night. He wasn't sure why. Maybe it was the way she laughed, like she hadn't in years. Or maybe it was the way she said, not yet. Like she was waiting for something. Or someone. He got to the restaurant at 11:55 a.m. the next day. She was already there. This time, she wore a sleek black turtleneck and jeans. Understated. Quietly powerful. Right on time, she said, sipping tea like this was normal. Jake sat down. You're gonna tell me what this is about? Evelyn tilted her head. I think you already know. Jake blinked. Do I? She reached into her bag and pulled out a photo. Worn edges. Slightly faded. Jake's eyes narrowed. It was a girl, no older than 17, standing awkwardly in front of a rusted old pickup truck, holding a crumpled scholarship letter in her hand. He stared. It hit him like a slap. Wait. Is that? Yes, she said. That's me. Before everything. Jake rubbed his face. I don't. How do I know this photo? You don't remember? Evelyn asked. Quiet now. You were a senior at Carson High. You and your friends used to hang around the gas station on Elm. I worked weekends there. Jake's stomach dropped. The gas station. That's right. The skinny girl behind the counter. Always silent. Always staring at the floor. Evelyn continued. I had just gotten that scholarship letter. First in my family to even dream of college. I was floating that day. I had no idea you were listening when I told my manager about it. Jake looked down. You didn't mean anything by it, probably, Evelyn said, more gently than he deserved. But you and your buddies. You laughed. Loud. Said it must be fake. That girls like me don't get into places like Ridgeview University. Jake remembered now. The jeers. The cackling. The snide remarks about how she wouldn't last a semester. He'd been trying to impress the others. He didn't even think she'd heard him. But she had. That night, Evelyn said, voice tight, I went home and ripped up that letter, I almost didn't go. Jake shook his head. I was a stupid kid. Trying to be funny. You were, she said, not unkindly. But you were also the reason I left town without saying goodbye. And why I pushed so hard to become someone I didn't even believe I could be. Jake looked at her, truly looked, and saw a woman who had turned her pain into fuel. I'm sorry, he whispered. She nodded slowly. I believe you. But why come back? Why now? She smiled, not bitterly, but with something soft and sad behind it. Because I needed to look you in the eye and see who you really are now. Jake swallowed hard. And I'm not sure yet, Evelyn said. But I saw something yesterday. When you helped me in the rain. That man wasn't the boy who laughed at a girl's dreams. That man saved me. Even though he didn't know it. Jake left that lunch shaken, not by anger or guilt, but by clarity. All these years, he'd been trying to rewrite his life by working harder, being kinder, staying small. But that wasn't enough. Not anymore. Now, he knew her name. Now, he knew what his words had cost. He spent the next few days driving through town with fresh eyes. Every street corner seemed to whisper a memory. Every small act of meanness from his past echoed louder. He saw the homeless guy on Main and handed him his coffee. He helped a single mom change a tire outside the grocery store. Not for show. Not to make up for it. But because Evelyn had reminded him of who he wanted to be. And then came the phone call. It was Evelyn. I'm leaving town soon, she said. One last thing I want to do before I go. Can you meet me? They met at a quiet hilltop park overlooking the city. She stood beside a bench with a leather folder in her hand. Come, she said, patting the seat beside her. Jake sat down. I want you to see something. She opened the folder. Inside were papers, deed documents, business plans, donation letters. Jake's eyes darted across the pages. The logo at the top. The Elm Project. A foundation. In his town. I'm buying the old gas station, Evelyn said. Tearing it down. In its place, I'm building a community center. For girls like I was. Kids who feel invisible. Jake couldn't speak. And I want you to help run it. He looked at her in disbelief. Me. You've changed, Jake, she said softly. And I believe people deserve to grow. You were the reason I ran. And now I want you to be the reason others don't have to. Jake swallowed. What if I mess it up? You will, Evelyn said with a grin. But you'll fix it. That's who you are now. He looked out at the town. You think they'll accept me? They'll follow you, she said. If you lead from your scars, not your ego. Jake exhaled deeply, something lifting from his shoulders. This wasn't just redemption. This was rebirth. He reached out and shook her hand, tears pricking his eyes. Thank you, he said. No, she replied. Thank you. For fixing more than just my flat tire. 3 years later, the old gas station was gone. In its place stood a bright, welcoming building with large glass windows, a mural of hands reaching upward, and a bold sign that read, The Evelyn Carrington Center for Hope. Inside, laughter echoed through the halls. Teenagers were gathered in the computer lab. A single mom was learning how to code in one corner, and in the center of it all stood Jake. He wore a staff badge now, led workshops, mentored boys who were walking the same path he once did. The community had embraced him not because he was perfect, but because he showed up, over and over, with honesty and heart. Evelyn hadn't returned in over a year. She had moved on to build other centers in other towns. But every time a new girl walked through the door with a hoodie pulled over her head and pain behind her eyes, Jake saw Evelyn. Then came a day unlike any other. It was the grand reopening. A celebration. A chance for the community to see how far they'd come. Jake stood on stage, microphone trembling in his hand. He told his story, the ugly parts too. He spoke about the day he mocked a girl for being different. About how she grew up to be someone the whole town respected. How she came back not to punish, but to heal. As he finished, The room stood in silence. Then, applause. And through the crowd, a figure stepped forward. Elegant, confident, familiar. Evelyn. She walked up, took the mic gently from his hand, and said, "Jake didn't just fix a flat tire that day. He fixed a cycle. One that could have continued in every child walking through those doors." She turned to him, eyes soft. "And I forgive you, not just for me, but for every girl who will never have to carry what I did." Jake's throat closed up. The crowd erupted, not just clapping, cheering. And as Evelyn stepped off the stage, she whispered, "You became the man I once hoped you'd be." Outside, the sky turned a warm shade of orange. Jake walked out to where a teenage girl stood nervously beside a car with a flat tire. He smiled and knelt down. "Need a hand?" She nodded. He began working quietly, but his heart full. Because he knew now, sometimes the smallest act of kindness could rewrite a life. Or two. Or an entire town. If this story moved you, don't keep it to yourself. Like this video so more people can see it. Comment below and tell us about a moment when kindness changed everything, and subscribe to SoulTwist Stories for more heart-stirring, twist-ending tales that remind us all. Kindness doesn't just change others. It transforms us. Thanks for watching. Stay kind, stay human, and I'll see you in the next story.